quality of life is high, and I think it's a city that mixes the old and the new.
I think a smart city would be a city that allows you to use whatever electronic media you have to buy tickets, find your way around, find out things that I would want to know in London.
It's where people dress very smartly.
I've never heard of the term the smart city.
I've not either.
It's data about the objects themselves and about people's interactions with them.
One of those things which is like big data. It has so many different meanings depending on who is trying to sell you which particular product.
So I think it's about monitoring the quality of life, not necessarily monitoring people or, tracking where cars are going, but just looking at the overall ambient picture and doing something amazing which just makes everyone's life that much easier.
Oh God, it's becoming a gimmick.
Cities really began about 10,000 years ago. The population in cities remained relatively small. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that really new technologies were invented so cities could go bigger. Cities would never have got much beyond 1 million. Really, to get any bigger than that, you needed new technologies to move people around. So we're now living in an era where we have industrial technologies and we have information technologies. This has given the opportunity for really everybody to move towards cities. So we can really say City 1 is industrial and agricultural technologies, and City 2 is information technologies to some extent. City 2, of course, will be smart in the sense that they're underpinned by information and energy, but information in particular will be what the central organising concept of the future city. So the smart city is where information technologies are being used to produce good, livable environments. We're talking about transporting people efficiently and cleanly and sustainably in this particular context. Everywhere you look, information technologies will be used to actually make our lives more livable and make the city smarter in that sense.
Smart cities are about using the vast array of data which is generated every day within a metropolitan area to do things like traffic analysis, air pollution, how people actually work, how we commute, how we live in the city. To do that, we need to understand how people can use this data.
My name's Terence Eden. I'm a developer and a hacker. I'm really interested in security. I think we're in a situation where there are loads and loads of government websites and they're really great, but some of them are a bit insecure. I think that can cause lots of problems not only for the departments involved, but also the people, the citizens who interact with them. So I'm trying to change that.
The huge advantage of hackathons like this is it puts real data in front of real people with real user needs, and they do things with it. And the transformative nature of that is such that it actually allows us to feed that back into the public domain for people to build on, make use of, create products, create services.
So we've got a small team together, and what we're doing is we're taking a look at a whole bunch of government websites. We're checking the security very lightly, and we're going to produce a dashboard, I suppose, so you'll be able to see a map of the country and zoom in on your town council and go, oh crikey, the council website isn't very secure. How can we fix that?
So by opening things up, we get a much more wide opinion of what people want to do with the data, what can be done with it, actually whether we're missing stuff out, whether there's things we should be doing instead. It just gives us a much wider perspective than we've ever had previously.
You can see smart cities in two different ways. One is something that is done to citizens, and big companies and governments come and they organize data and technology and they make things happen to citizens. Or you can see it as a way to empower individuals, because each of us have technology and access to technology now, and if we develop the right platforms, then citizens can become engaged and they can help design their cities and use them in different ways. Now my sense is that the smart city of the future will mix both of those, because it needs citizens and engagement and conversation with citizens, but also we need government and we need companies too. So I think it's about how we have that conversation between the top down, what comes from government, and the bottom up, what comes from citizens. And that's the place where it becomes smart, where those two things meet.
We need to be very, very careful how we build and how we kind of attribute the data, because it has to be, you can't start having closed platforms, well, in my opinion, because it doesn't belong to corporations, it belongs to everyone, and everyone should be able to kind of learn from it, profit from it if they like, whatever they want to do.
The social uses and the social problems that arise from the fact that in the ideal smart city, as I progress through the city, every second of my journey is logged, every action I take is identified, every purchase I make is discovered. And then the question from a social point of view is, okay, is that just an unfettered activity? Is this a life in the new city? Do I have to put up with it? Or is this something that the law should intervene in to solve problems of potential social conflict?
So I think the role of government is to support, facilitate, drive those kinds of initiatives. Provide the impetus to release data, to drive transparency, to work on the basis that the data which we collect as we deliver services on behalf of the citizen should then be fed back into the public domain for people to build on, make use of, create products, create services.
This is data that we've paid for. You know, we pay for this through our taxes. Why shouldn't we have the right to get this data and do what we want with it? Why do we have to pay twice? You know, in some cases we paid, for example, we paid to put the railway tracks down, and then we pay massive subsidies for the train companies, and then we pay them to gather all this data, and then we ask citizens, please can you pay to have data so you can build your own train tracking app, for example. I don't think that's a sustainable situation. This data is ours. We can do amazing things with it that giant companies perhaps just wouldn't think of or wouldn't find immensely profitable, but could be really useful for citizens and citizen groups.
Well, for me, there's a difference between using aggregate data, large data sets about huge numbers of people moving, and my personal information about me. I'm concerned that when I'm driving in the United States now, every single intersection has a camera, so they know where I am. Now, maybe that will show that I did not commit a murder someday if I'm accused of it, but it worries me that we have so much data about where we are, what we're spending. The aggregate data, I'm all for, and yes, collect aggregate data, have a war against terrorists. That's fine. But I do worry about what they're doing with what my data says.
You can tackle privacy by making the data anonymous, so making sure that we don't have too much about the individual in the data. Often also I think it's about a conversation with citizens and society about how much do they want to give up and what do they get in return. People already give up a lot of their own personal data in Facebook and social media and so on because they like what they get in return. And cities, I think the same will be the case. Citizens will be willing to sacrifice some privacy if they feel like they've got a city that's got a much higher quality of life and is functioning more effectively.
So the question is where you put the level of control. You know, do you try and give it to me? That's a very difficult technical issue because the smart city is collecting data without really knowing it's me, and it's being linked to me later on. So where do you put my control in? Or do you put it in at an organisational level, in which case potentially you lose all the advantages of smart cities because organisations stop collecting data? It's a very difficult issue to resolve, and we don't have an answer for it yet.